So, you just heard the comments that McEnroe made. I'm in a unique situation. I've been involved with tennis for nearly 30 years now, actually. Actually, it's been longer than 30 years. A lot of time flies. I published a weekly newspaper and started covering tennis back in the early to mid-1980s, and consequently, being the publisher of a paper in press conferences, I was often the only person in press conferences at the US Open and other major tournaments with major stars to ask questions that people really wanted to hear asked. And other reporters would come up to me after and say, how do you get away asking those questions without getting fired? Well, it's easy when you work for yourself. So I got to know a lot of the players. Some took longer to become friends because of the questions I asked in press conferences. I asked John McEnroe. The purpose of this short podcast I'm doing today, this special podcast in reply to McEnroe. But I asked McEnroe once in a pretty major press conference. He had just come off his only long hiatus in his career. And one of the first questions I asked him with all the major sports reporters in the room is I asked him if he ever had sought or thought he needed to seek some professional mental health experts. So fast forward about 20 years, and my son was a starting player on the professional ATP tour and became known as the workout partner for Venus and Serena for a few years, right as they broke through at the Grand Slams. I always like to say before they worked with my son Fame, yeah, his name is Fame, before they worked with my son Fame, they had won no Grand Slams and gold medals, and afterwards, well, you know the rest. So yeah, it was all because of that time, undoubtedly. But nevertheless, being the workout partner for the girls also opened up the opportunity for him to take advantage of working and learning from some of the greatest older players in history, and that included John and Borg and many other people. But in John's situation, the controversy that hopefully the clip preceded at the beginning of this podcast of McEnroe just glibly saying that Serena's the greatest female player ever, which is sort of beyond the argument at this point, and that if she were to play men's tennis, though, the woman pushed her. The woman's not a sports reporter. I guess the woman is normally a war correspondent and highly regarded, but doesn't do sports interviews. So she said, when Mac said that Serena was the greatest female tennis player ever, she said, well, isn't she the greatest player ever? And of course, if you're a professional athlete, you can't let that go. And I am a huge proponent of women's sports. I have a handful of people that I truly look up to in my life. And of the 5 of them, 2 of them are women tennis players, Billie Jean and Martina Navratilova. So I definitely am totally on the side of women's sports, and of course equal pay, and that stupid argument that men play 5 sets so they're out there 5 hours and women only play best at the way of Grand Slams. That's ridiculous. And as I believe it was Billy who said, you don't pay more to go to a movie that's 3 hours long than a movie that's an hour and a half, which in typical Billy is succinct and accurate. But also remaining accurate is when my son was the hitting partner, and they were all about 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and they were breaking through and winning doubles, Grand Slams, and then Serena in 99 at 17 winning Open. My son was ranked 1200 or so, what McEnroe says he would be ranked now, which I think is higher. He's given himself more credit than I think he knows. But it's sure just playing in a practice situation, not with the attitude coming in. That's a huge important thing that I have to reference here. Attitude is huge, so huge that basically that's what I do. My career is I was an animal behaviorist, got involved with tennis, and segued into trying to come up with the actual theory, a teachable theory for attitude. So attitude, I believe, is everything. Again, I'm coming to this and what I'm going to say from totally supportive of women and women's sports, 100% or beyond, if that's possible, as well as somebody that works on attitude and knows how important that is, as an asterisk. Now, just on typical playing, physical, take out attitude, take out winning, take out all of that, just on attitude, McEnroe is probably just about dead on. I also would say, I don't know 700, but boy, the depth is phenomenal. It's phenomenal now in all professional sports, as it is with the women as well, but it's phenomenal. I've always loved these men-women things. I believe Billie Jean playing Bobby Riggs did more for women's rights than any other single thing. If you take one single event that aroused everybody and had people totally biased on one side or the other and totally divided, in a fun way usually, which I believe really helped women's rights because it was done with two very, very smart people, Billy and Bobby. And it was amazing. And to put the controversy and the things Bobby said in passing and everything else, Billy beat Bobby. He didn't throw any matches. But again, we're talking men against women. She was the number 2, soon to be the number 1 player in the world. Bobby had destroyed the number 1, but that was attitude. Margaret Carter was number 1, did not like any of this hoopla. Billy loved it. Whatever Bobby threw at her, Billy came back with more. So attitude-wise, there was no problem, and Billy beat him fair and square. He always said that because she had promised a rematch, and she reneged on it, and as she apologized until the day Bobby died, according to Bobby, Billy said she would wake up in cold sweats with nightmares that she lost the match they had played. So, talk about pressure. Hence, Billy wrote a book. Getting back to the point of this all. So I know McEnroe well. My son worked with him a lot. We grew up 5 miles, 10 miles away from each other. We both have similar New York kind of tough guy attitudes. We both softened as we got older. But all he was doing, as McEnroe pretty much has always done, be it screaming or not, he was just saying what pretty much through a very intelligent mind, which he has, and comprehensive and diverse and very worldly in many different areas and fields, not just tennis, is speaking. If he wasn't a player and he was an analyst, a sports analyst, which he's among the best there is, doing his tennis coverage, I don't know if this hoopla would be there, but the fact that he's talking with someone with real experience. So it's really not even a questionable thing. Serena answered in a really equally intelligent way, one of the smartest people I know. Venus, Serena, and that whole family are just absolutely amazing, wonderful people, and it's really such a pleasure and such a growing experience for me to be around all the Williams. And they were and are really phenomenal family, way beyond what, the little headlines and the paparazzi look at them. What's going to come of all of this is, I would say, it's going to be an absolutely perfect way for the dream updated 40 some odd year later Battle of the Sexes to take place. And I would say Madison Square Garden. And let's see, the baby would be born in September. I would say probably right after Wimbledon and before the U.S. Open. Let's see if I'm right about this. Maybe I could be the promoter. I've done that also. I've promoted tennis things usually for charity and junior events, but it's one that I was very close to doing a Battle of the Sexes with Bobby and Nastasi. Well, I don't say Nastasi, more controversy. Nastasi and Bobby against Ketover. And, yeah, I think, was it Billy? Yeah, Billy and Ketover. Billy and Ketover against Bobby and Nastasi. And we were going to everybody was in agreement, 3 out of the 4, and we could never get Ketover. The only one who never won a tournament of any sort, ever, in singles. So, another thing, here's a little sales pitch. If you go to eBay, the seller called Tennis Buyers, that's 10S Buyers. I have an authentic, handmade, blown from an amazing German artist company, blown glass trophy from 1999 for John McEnroe that he presented to me back in 1999. So that's on eBay right now. I'm downsizing. There's all kinds of tennis things. But so that would be my guess. I don't know if I finished that thought, but sometime I would say in 2018, Serena's baby would be about 5-6 months old. She'd been back hitting about, 5 or 6 months, knowing Serena. I'm thoroughly convinced she'll hit and exercise straight through the pregnancy, straight through, maybe as she's giving birth, knowing Serena. To say she has attitude and is dedicated is a little understatement. And I would say McEnroe and Serena at Madison Square Garden, straight up. He'll be 58 or 59. Bobby was 53, but Billy wasn't overpowering as Serena's game, of course, 40 some odd years ago. And I would say that matchup, I said it a few years ago, even in doubles with the girls against the Max. That might be a toss-up, and that's why I like those kind of handicap things. What's the handicap? The guy's 33 years. I mean, Serena's the oldest '1 in the history of tennis, men or women, and she still was barely born when McEnroe won its last Grand Slam. She was 2 or 3. McEnroe now won a Grand Slam after 25. He'll be 59 at this time next year. So I believe that would be a good battle, and I'd pick Serena in that one. 5 years ago, I don't know, but Serena should have too much power for him at this point. But again, we're talking a guy 59. If we're talking about these kids that are dedicated and are in the gym 20 hours a day and all they do is think about it, if you take attitude out of it, Serena is not going to beat people in the top hundreds. She won't. But put attitude in, and now you're on a court, and you're a guy who's never played a woman since you're a little junior practicing, and now you're playing a woman, that could really affect your attitude. And when Serena aces him, which she'll surely do in a match with anybody, but not enough to dominate like she does in women's tennis. But that could totally make a guy crumble, and she could win. But again, but taking attitude out and just totally, as McEnroe, I believe, was referring to, again, glibly, it wasn't like that was the interview was about. I'd pretty much, maybe not with the exact number, because like Serena replied with Twitter, don't talk about things that aren't factual. You don't know. You'll never know. Serena's not going on the men's tour. She won't be playing qualifying tournaments and challenges and futures to get enough points, as my son did, to get into the big tournaments. So I don't believe that's happening anytime soon, even though it's been a nice buzz story since both girls started dominating everybody as teenagers. Now, the end of this relatively short podcast today, which is special just for Sun-Daze channel viewers, because I'm one of the only people on the planet probably qualified to speak about this, having lots of on-court and off-court time with both Mac and with the girls and everybody in the family. So I know where they're at. It's not a controversy. It wouldn't be a controversy with either of them. So why is it a controversy? No, it's not just social media. Whoa, what a coincidence. Once again, big business calling the shots. Once again, big business making even amazing, amazing athletes like John McEnroe and amazing personalities and super rich entertainers like John McEnroe and Serena Williams, and still treating them like marionettes and puppets. Because they now, Serena trying to be with family and friends, just be peaceful, quiet, enjoy her first pregnancy, enjoy this other new chapter in her life, and trying to focus on that, and now she has to answer these banal questions every time she goes out, every time she goes to get a car serviced and oil change. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And why? I mean, McEnroe has a new book out. McEnroe doesn't want people waiting outside his apartment in New York, or when he goes to his art gallery, or when he's with his rocker wife at concerts. He doesn't want this either, even with the relatively little bit extra sales money that it would bring in for him. He doesn't want it. So who's behind this? Who could possibly be behind all this? Well, let's run it backwards, which is always the way to follow the money. So the thing broke 2 days ago. Yesterday, when we all woke up, you turn on CBS Morning News. Coming up, John McEnroe, speaking of, saying Serena would be ranked 700 if she played men. Coming up later on CBS Morning News, he came out and kept saying what I'm saying here. It was a good thing. He couldn't say exactly 700, but there's no way that she'd be competitive at that same level as in basketball. He said, rightfully so, how come they're not asking in basketball? And boxing, where you can actually make them more even by weight classes. Why aren't they talking about women not fighting men? How would that come out? So why is it always on tennis? So that's basically, rather than talking about the nice content of his book and how he's always loved art and loved music and how that's a lot of his life now, besides working with juniors at his academy in New York. And saying that, at his age he'll lose to any of these guys that he's saying would beat Serena also. And he's one of the all-time world-class pros, but he knows how matchups are. I mean, we all do. If we're around tennis, we all know when we walk to the court, basically, we're pretty much 98% sure who's going to win virtually every match we go to. The handful that there aren't. So, well, those of us around the sport, we know what he was saying was true. But, so he was on CBS Morning News right after this thing was stirred up. It was stirred up late in the evening after John was on NPR, probably put on NPR by his publisher. They do it. The publisher is Little Brown, very respected publisher. But as we all know, there's 6 companies that basically control all the media. Little Brown is owned by Time Warner. Lo and behold, so is CBS, is owned by Time Warner. He was on CBS Morning News to start the day. He ended the day on Late Night with Stephen Colbert. CBS. So, do we have to be geniuses? I mean, they've been doing this crap since the 1910s and 20s at least, when movie studios started. And they plant stories about stars without them knowing that they're having affairs, and the people never met each other, and now they're answering stories about these things just to drum up interest in movies. Well, maybe it wasn't affairs then, because I was looked down on, but whatever it might have been, that someone spent $12 on a dress, perhaps. But these things have always been done like this. It's always followed the money. It's always just about getting more money, and they don't really care about Serena now having to deal with hassles when she's pregnant. Just because she's a big star and puts money into their pockets. So yes, by the way, why did McEnroe's book come out right now? Well, CBS might be the people that cover the U.S. Open. That makes more money, believe it or not, the U.S. Open in 2 weeks than any other professional sports team in New York. That includes the New York Yankees. 2 weeks of the U.S. Open make more money, follow the money, more money than the New York Yankees or the Mets or the Jets or the Giants. 2 weeks at the U.S. Open, which CBS covers. They don't cover those other sports regularly. They cover the U.S. Open, run on CBS. where John McEnroe is an announcer, where John McEnroe has published a book for Little Brown, owned by Time Warner, who owns CBS. So why is this a controversy when we all know about this? Because all you goofballs in social media talk about it, and everybody cares about it, and it generates it. This little thing should show you how everything else going on now in politics, and with denying the climate change, which is the number one thing for all of us, that all of us in any profession, in any career, if we actually care about continuing this thing called evolution, and our kids and grandkids actually playing a part in it, we probably should care about that more than any other thing. At what point do these giant annual wildfires, at what point do they have to get to where they all connect? So there's the whole burn zone of the United States, which is about 80%, shall just be one huge fire that no longer could be contained because the money is no longer there, the firefighters are no longer there. So we just give up and we all move back to the states that don't burn, which I don't know if it's coincidence or is a good guess. But the original states, the Northeast primarily, from Maine is number 50 for wildfires. So is that basically what people are going to do? Just sit around until everything's on fire and then just leave? Well, that's closer to what my normal podcast would be, but I really felt when, as I say, I believe if I had an agent, you'd be seeing me on every talk show, more than McEnroe, more than Serena, because I could be a commentator about both of them, and unbiased because I really do like them both a lot, Bill. That Serena's like family. McEnroe's like a neighbor. So, basically, yeah, much to do about nothing. What else is new? Welcome to the new world of reporting. This is it. And I promise I'll talk about more important things virtually all the time on this podcast, like climate change and other things that we should actually be talking about, rather than if the greatest woman tennis player to ever live, which number she would be ranked if she decided to give up having one of the most fabulous, amazing lives and careers, and would rather just go and toil and try to break through so she could get to the bottom rungs of something. Maybe she'd work her way up and be able to get direct entry, ranked 110 into one of the Grand Slams as a man. Believe me, I know Serena. Serena wants nothing except to be the best at whatever she does, always from the time she was born. There. Now I've left you with a little Williams family insight, as if you couldn't have told that already. But attitude-wise, all the Williams agree. Pretty much everyone who's ever met Serena agrees. There has never been anybody that wants to go on the court and win every point. If she wins all the points but 5, but she thought she should have lost only 3, she'll be as pissed off as if she lost the match. Serena sets goals that nobody else has ever set. And I'll leave you with one little example of it. Before the no, it wasn't the semifinal at the Open. I believe it was the year-end championships in New York at Madison Square Garden. And we were at an indoor facility because it was the winter, and the Madison Square Garden's indoor facility. So she was practicing indoors somewhere. Grand Central Station, we found the court upstairs that we used. That's why I was confused. We had found it during the rainy practice session during the Open that year. Anyway, so I just realized I didn't put the light on. I was going to put on, well, hopefully this looks okay. I don't want to do this again. So, yeah, that's the other side of my face. You see, it's actually there. This looks sort of nice now that I'm looking. So Serena was practicing with Fame, with my son. It's only the 2 of them. He wasn't there. In fact, I think it was only the 3 of us there that day. Yeah, it was. And she just went like, oh, and grabbed the side a little, and Faye asked if she was okay, if she wanted to stop. She said, no, it's fine, and they finished that practice about another half hour, 35 minutes. And as soon as she was done, she got on her phone and called somebody, and they came, and I guess it was hurting more than she had said during practice, and long story short, it turned out one of her ribs had wrapped around the other rib, so she actually had a rib caught on another rib, and played for about 25 minutes to a half hour after that, full-out practice. That's Serena Williams. So yes, none of us doubt that she is by far the greatest female tennis player ever. And with Martina as one of my true inspirations of my life. And me being a huge fan of Monica Seles, and so sorry to what happened to her to derail her career. And Billie being amazing in doubles and mixed and everything else. And Margaret Court with her trumped up number of championships, with about half of them being in Australia, where she's from and nobody else went to in those years. And a racist. And a sexist. Serena is by far the greatest. And as McEnroe has said in the past, Serena might be the greatest athlete and sports person of all time. But it doesn't change the fact. Roberto Duran could have been the best fighter in his weight. He wouldn't have beat Muhammad Ali. He wouldn't have even made a dent in Muhammad Ali. That's what McEnroe could have added after he said that. But CBS would have cut it out because they're the ones that are going to benefit from all of it. So, okay. So, we'll be leaving you now. And that's it. McEnroe Serena. Coming up next late summer, right before the U.S. Open. Be there. Buy your tickets now. Peace. Where is it? See, it's too dark. Peace. Peace falls feces. Oh boy.